Okay, welcome to Fresh Set of Downs. This is playoff week number 3. My name is Bruce Badgley. Alongside me, as always, my good friend Dave Mika. And Dave, we've got a very special guest with us this evening.
Yeah, we do. We have Roman Catholics head coach Rick Preet. Uh, Welcome to the show. And listen, congratulations, historic win. You guys get your first ever state playoff win. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me on.
Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, so you get your first win. Obviously Beals had a big game in that game. You know, how are the kids going into that game knowing, hey, it's our first state playoff game and you had to travel all the way up to the Poconos to play. Talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, the kids were very excited, extremely excited to play in that game, and um, I think we thrive off of being on the road. I think that's
Hmm.
a big deal for us. Our kids like to be in different environments. They like to be in hostile environments. It's something that we have have prepared for throughout the season. We've made multiple trips down to the DC area this year. We've played, at Malvern Prep in a primetime game. So our kids really enjoy getting an opportunity to play outside the city.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and you're going to be playing outside the city again. You got a little bit of a bus ride to Mechanicsburg, here this week to play Hollidaysburg. That's a nice place over there at Mechanicsburg. I've done a couple games there. It's very much a park-like setting. But for you, it's going to be all business. And, when you get into this particular game, what are some of the keys for you with this team? Coming out of the blocks with your second playoff game.
Yeah, going into this game, I mean, it's just kind of following our process. It's obviously a little bit more amplified now that we're in a playoff setting, but making sure that we feel prepared going into the game. There's no surprises um, for our kids. And then just looking at Hollidaysburg, sort of from what we see on film, just a really talented team that does a lot well, and they will definitely pose some issues that we need to get resolved prior to going into the game. So for us, it's just follow our process, do what we do, and make sure we're prepared, and then we'll roll the ball out and let the chips fall where they may.
And
Dave?
I know I was at your game against East Stroudsburg South, and I know after the game you kind of, addressed the kids. There's a lot of penalties, and you kind of said, okay, let's flush this and move forward. Um, talk about some of the things you were, talking to the kids after that game.
Yeah, I mean, so uh, just throughout the year, we're constantly talking to them about the need to be disciplined, right, and to be focused on every snap. I will say that the East Stroudsburg game, there was an alignment issue on the left side of our line, which
Hmm.
we never dealt with anything like that. So I think they got us on that like 3 or 4 times out of like 8 plays. So like every other play,
Hmm.
they were getting us on that, and we were kind of like what are we doing? Trying to figure it out. And we got some clarity at halftime, and we were able to fix that. And then on the other side of it, it's there was some pass interference called, and we're a heavy man coverage team, so I think that is some of those calls I think are obviously just a discretion of the official, but
Hmm.
we're a man coverage team, so um, PIs are going to come with that, and I don't necessarily think that's a discipline issue. I think
Hmm.
that is I don't want to say an opinion, but that is the judgment of the official.
Hmm.
So some of them may have merit, some of them don't, but we're going to continue to play the style that we play. I'm what we try to avoid, and we've done a decent job of it this year, is dead ball fouls and stuff after the whistle. We don't tolerate that. We don't have those kind of issues. But between the lines or between whistles, our style of play is conducive to a judgment call in certain instances.
And I know the coach talked about on the other side how fast you ran your offense, which he was very impressed with. He really talked highly of Samaj Beals. You guys have that big playability, and one guy that really showed that big playability was your one wide receiver, Rashawn Scott, which I think he had two catches for 95 yards in that game and a long touchdown. Talk about your receiver core.
Well, I mean, just the offense and the way it's constructed starts with Marcus Hammond, our offensive coordinator. He just does a tremendous job of paying attention to the details, what needs to be done, and then is constantly coaching our kids to a certain standard. So that is Marcus and the offensive staff do a tremendous job with that. And as far as our skill guys, um, they're just tremendous football players, tremendous athletes. And our goal here is to just try to find matchups that we can exploit and find leverage that we can go after and open field that we can run to. So, I mean, I think our offense is wide open, and there's a lot of things that we can do, and it's extremely multiple. And then you have to get kids that buy into the fact that, like, all right, if we're in 11 or 10 personnel, even if you don't start, we're going to run in two, three different sets of receivers throughout a
Mhm.
game. So I think that's something that we're trying to do, and it's been working so far.
Mhm.
Rick, when I was getting ready for the broadcast tonight, you and I go back a little ways,
Sure.
and God, I was just reflecting on, the times that you and I have been together throughout, your career and my career and what have you. And I saw some of the videos of the fans,
Mhm.
at the game and everything there. And I could only reflect on the fact that, you know what, you've worked so very hard, to get where you're at. And are you being reflective? Are you enjoying this ride that you're on right now?
Um, I think there'll come a time, you know. Um, Honestly, Bruce, I don't know if that time is right now. Right now, I'm just enjoying the company of our coaches and our young men that we have in the program. I'm sort of learning to live inside that moment because you look back and it's been this is season 6 now, and I
Mhm.
still think about kids from our first team, and we didn't make playoffs, and that the team the next year who had to deal with COVID, and I still think about those kids in relationships. I was fortunate enough at my last stop to have coached in state title games and everything, but what you realize is that the relationships and the kids that you're trying to impact on a day-to-day basis, that's what it's all about. And I think there will come a time kind of reflect on you know on not an accomplishment but just the journey. I just don't think
Mhm.
it's now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And one other thing too is, um, as you, kind of assembled, this coaching staff, did you have, something in mind, kind of a blueprint for the kind of coach that you want working with you to, elevate these young men?
Absolutely. I mean, first criteria is be a good person. And it may seem like well, every coach is a good person, but that's not true. And I want good men around our coaches, around our kids, and around our program that are going to mentor kids. My feeling is that if the kids care about you as their position coach or their coordinator, they're going to play harder for you. And then you get to know them, you get to know what makes them tick. And then when they're having a bad day, you're able to express that to me as the head coach, and we know when we can push a little harder or when we can, ease off of it a little bit. But I think having the ability to have a great relationship with your position group goes a long way. Being a good man obviously is first and foremost, like I said. But we can always coach a coach on what we want. A coach can go get some career training and do some coaches clinics and things of that nature. That's the football side of it, but the human side of it, we need to be good role models for our kids and have relationships with them.
Dave, you got a final question there for Rick?
Yeah, so I asked Beals at the, when I interviewed him after the game, I said, Roman Catholic, they're obviously known for basketball. I said they're just not a basketball program anymore. They're a football program. I think what you've done each year and got, your team's getting better, you're starting to build that program there.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, it's a lot of people that are involved with this. It's not just me by any stretch of the imagination. We
Mhm.
have, I think about our coaches that are involved with this, and then their families and their wives, what they sacrifice, because our schedule is not just a game schedule, but our off season schedule and what we do is not. It's very demanding, especially for the high school level. Our administration, our parents, and obviously our kids. There's a lot of people that have to contribute for us to do well. So there's so many things going on behind the scenes. We have guys, alumni coming back that just want to help guide our kids and be a part of what we're doing. So uh, we're going to keep climbing and keep building, but this is all hands on deck.
Well, I tell you what,
Definitely.
Rick, I wish you all the luck in the world. I know that we'll be following you, and the next time Dave and I see you, I hope it's on the field there at Cumberland Valley. So, listen, Rick, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate your time, my friend,
Yeah.
and
Thanks, Bruce.
we'll
Thanks,
see you
Dave.
down the road. Okay.
All right, you got it.
All
Good
right.
See
luck
you.
this
Thanks a
week,
lot. Just go
coach.
ahead and
Yep.
exit out. Appreciate it.
Yep. Bye.
Bye now. One of the good guys. I mean, one of the I think an unsung hero, and I couldn't help but reflect of knowing Rick as long. I can't believe. First off, I can't believe he's been the head coach there for 6 years.
Yeah.
It just seems like yesterday. Number one, and number two, thinking about all the times, seeing Rick, kind of as he worked hard in the off season, worked on 7-on-7s, was always giving of his time when I had questions regarding what he was doing and philosophy and offensive sets and that. Just a terrific guy.
Yeah, and like you said, year two was the COVID year. So, that kind of it sets back a program a little bit. And I know people say, well, Imhotep moved up, it clears the path. But this year I don't think it would have mattered. I think Roman was ready to take the next step, and they have. Their opponent this week is Hollidaysburg. And you never want to look ahead, but yeah, I mean at this point in time, you know, every team you play is good. So you got to bring your A game.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just seemed like a quiet confidence there, despite the fact that this was, going to only be their second playoff game in school history. They're battle tested, man. I mean, Philadelphia
Well,
Catholic League football.
one other thing I would add is I know, with the Philly Catholic League schools in, sometimes the crowds aren't big on their side. But I'll say this, they had a decent amount of people
Oh,
up there at East Stroudsburg South. And it was nice was East Stroudsburg University had a luncheon for them prior to the game, so they got to go there and then go on the field and kind of, do some things there. prior to going to the school. But yeah, I saw that video too, and it's great to see the support they're getting.
Yeah, it is fantastic. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to see to do some Roman Catholic basketball games. So when you were talking about the fact that, it's a football school too now, you
Well,
know,
yeah, I mean
it's
everyone
big
knows
time.
Roman Catholic basketball,
Sure. I
but
mean, they're two
he's
years removed from a
now.
state championship. So
Yeah, and he's now starting to build this football program that, hey, everyone in District 12, yes, it starts with prep. Now LaSalle, Wood at times in the past was a power. And I think Roman Catholic is starting to get there and rightly so.
yeah, Wood was so powerful in 5A there for, a few years. And so now, Roman Catholics kind of filled the void there. So, all right. Well, listen, Dave, we're waiting for some other people to, get on with us here. And I think what we'll do is maybe go through some scores from last week. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean we could do that, or I didn't know if you were gonna bring up the brackets or
And
whatever,
we will.
but
Yeah, we'll get to the
yeah,
brackets here, but I'd like to maybe start with some scores that will kind of, lead into the bracket and talk a little bit about, what went on. Why I'm missing took out, this is District 3 action from last week. Why I'm missing took out West York, ended their season, but, a fabulous turnaround for West York this year, Dave.
yeah, absolutely. You talked about it. They had what was the record
They were
last
0 and
year?
10 last
Oh,
year,
and
and now
10. And
they made it to a
and
district
I
championship
mean,
game.
that's an incredible turnaround, and obviously they wanted to play further, but to get that deep in the playoffs after going 0 and 10, that says a lot about the coaching staff, says a lot about the kids, because obviously in the off season those kids put in the time, and it reflected this year.
Yeah, and while we're on District 3 there, we've got our buddy Joe Mays is going to stop by here.
Oh,
Joe,
nice.
that of the Bulldog Hour, and obviously a big game this week in 6A.
Yeah.
And there he is, man, the man who really taught me how to do this stuff, Joe Mays. Actually, Joe, I mean,
I like the shirt.
yeah, Joe,
Yeah,
a
I
few
always
years
rep it.
ago, yeah, Joe produced the show a while back when,
That's right.
my God, we got a lot of history here of Joe being on the show, but they're
Well,
on the
look
set of
at
the Bulldog Hour.
That's
look
right.
at
Live and in
Wilson
person.
man cave there. It's impressive man cave.
Yeah, it's a little dark right now. It's hiding some of the Wilson stuff. I forgot to turn some lights on, but yeah, the my part of my Wilson archive is back there. So
I guess so.
Yeah, right. So I tell you, Joe, pretty fabulous season the Bulldogs have had. Now making it to the district championship game against Harrisburg. You and I have been through these Wilson Harrisburg games. I mean, they're knockdown dragouts. What are you expecting from both teams going into this game?
yeah, fairly familiar opponent. I think the Bulldogs were happy last year to not end up having their season ended by Harrisburg, as that has been a theme for much of the last 6 years. It seems that Harrisburg's been a thorn in Wilson's side, dating back to 2018, a playoff loss at Severance Field, 2019, a semifinal loss to the Harrisburg at Gursky on actually an untimed down to end the game. Bulldogs came up short on that one. 2020 was a wacky season. That Wilson didn't end up making the 4-team district field during the COVID year, but Harrisburg did. And in 2021, Wilson kind of went on a run and made it to Severance Field to take on the Cougars in the district championship game, came up short there. So 2022 comes around and well, here we go again. We're back at Severance Field for a playoff game, and that doesn't go Wilson's way either. So last year, going to Cumberland Valley was a little bit of it was a tough battle, and we knew it was going to be a tough game, one that we, in the end lost. But to not have it at the hands of Harrisburg after so many battles with them the last few years, I guess you could maybe call it a silver lining, if you will. But anytime you lose a game, you're upset about it. Of course, this year we are again, though. Harrisburg back on the docket Saturday at Exeter for the 6A championship.
And that is the interesting part is the fact that there was an aura about playing at Severance Field on a Saturday afternoon. Quite honestly, I was surprised that the district, surprised but maybe not surprised that the district put the game on Saturday afternoon. But I think that there's definitely a different feel for the game being back at a neutral site this year. What do you think?
So I think there's multiple aspects there. My thought, and I have no insight into why District 3 made the decisions on where the championships games will be played, what neutral facilities were available, who volunteered, what the options were. My thought as to why the 6A game is Saturday afternoon and not also Friday evening is because you have a host school where that football team is also participating in a championship game. And it would be kind of unfortunate if you're asking your volunteers or paid game personnel to be at your own stadium when their friends and family, maybe children, are playing in a game elsewhere. So one of those games had to be on Saturday. And I'm guessing if that was left up to Exeter, they would say, let's keep our Eagles playing on Friday night and let's host the 6A game on Saturday afternoon. Again, I don't know if that's part of the reason, the whole reason, not even thought of, but that was my kind of initial thought is Exeter's playing Friday, so Exeter will host on Saturday.
Mm-hmm. Makes
Dave,
sense.
you got a question?
Yeah, so it looks like I think I saw somewhere it looks like Harrisburg's getting healthier. Kevin Brown, who's been out since I think week 2,
Yeah, week
was
2.
back. And that's really gonna help their line. And it showed last week with Mickens, rushing for almost, I think, 150 yards,
Yeah.
3 touchdowns. Um, you know, Harrisburg seems like they're getting stronger and stronger each week.
Yeah, they had that one hiccup against Cumberland Valley, but like you mentioned, Kevin Brown wasn't playing in that game. He was out.
Yeah.
And their quarterback, Lewis, actually ended up, I believe, throwing 4 interceptions in that game against the Eagles. So they had an issue during that game, not at, full staff or full speed, and some turnovers were an issue. But other than that, and the game 1 loss to LaSalle College High School, it was more of the same from Harrisburg this season. They're an electric team. Coach Everett has them playing like, ever since he took over and got the program back to where it is now. I mean, it's been over a decade of dominance for them. They're angling now for their 4th straight 6A championship. They just continue to restock there. The players coming up through that program are fantastic year in and year out. A little bit different this year with Lewis at quarterback versus Sean Lee that we had been grown accustomed to the past 3 seasons. Not as polished of a passer Lewis is, but still very dangerous. He's just a little bit more hit or miss than Sean Lee was, but obviously very, very dangerous in the open field with his legs. And when you have someone like Mickens in the backfield as well, and the ability to go to Sheffy or Ewell, who Ewell's a fantastic player, and all of a sudden Mickens and Sheffy come in, and Ewell doesn't have to do as much offensively, and now he's more of a stud on defense. But
yeah, absolutely.
The Harrisburg Cougars are just stacked. Wilson's played them pretty well, especially that 2021 district championship game. The final there was 14-10. But it's an uphill battle, one that Wilson's going to have. They're going to have to play their best game, which I don't think they played last week against Central York. Still were able to come out on top. But if they want a chance to beat Harrisburg and keep playing football, it's going to have to be their best game of the season. And one of the things that stands out, and both teams will have to play in it, is high winds Saturday afternoon, looking to be 20 to 30 mile per hour gusts.
Wow.
So it's going to be interesting to see how that impacts any semblance of a passing game for Lewis and Gruber, or if it's both going to be on the backs of Mickens and Akings.
Yeah.
And I think that the wind, both of these teams are going to run the football, and ultimately I think that's what's they're going to count on. But I think special teams is going to be, important. And the one thing that I've seen this year over years past with Harrisburg is really an improvement in special teams. Elias Koch as the punter, I think he had like one punt of 55 yards and one punt of like over 60 yards last week. They've got some really good, a really good kicker as well. So from that perspective too, Wilson has always had good special teams as well. But I think that wind is going to affect special teams as much as the passing game.
Yeah, I don't know much about Harrisburg special teams. I know that they were cited as if Harrisburg has an Achilles heel, it continues to be special teams, but you're saying they're improved, which I don't like to hear that, Bruce. That's not something I want to hear.
Well, I did the game last week, so they did pretty good.
So, I mean, and that generally, that's not really me talking about punting or coverage. That's mostly that they don't usually have a reliable place kicker. They don't normally attempt field goals. They often will just go for two no matter what. So them having that component obviously throws a wrinkle in, but with the high winds, it may be tough to kick field goals depending on the direction that the wind is blowing across the field. Of course, we got to see Matthew Parker last week hit a 56-yarder at Gursky with the wind at his back. So depending on how that wind's blowing at Exeter, I don't know, maybe we can see Harrisburg kicker or Christo attempt something, probably not from 56, but possibly longer than Christo's season long of 32.
Yeah, I tell you, it's going to be a real classic. And, Joe, any thoughts on, obviously there's two other Berks County teams in District 3 championship games. Exeter going up against Bishop McDevitt. That's the game that I'll be broadcasting for Penn Live. And then Wyo tries to avenge their loss to LS for the 4A championship. Any thoughts from you on the 5A and the 4A titles?
Well, so Bishop, I honestly, and I think everyone knows this, but I believe all three Berks teams are the underdogs. And no matter how you slice it, I think Wilson, Exeter, and Wyomissing are facing uphill battles and strong and talented opponents. Bishop McDevitt is a fantastic team, lost to Harrisburg, but I think is going to give Exeter all they can. It was nice to see Exeter overcome the only hiccup they've had all year against Conestoga Valley last week. I know that was like a revenge game they felt for them, and they are a dangerous 8 seed, 8 versus 6 in that 5A, which is just interesting to show you how power ratings aren't everything.
None of the undefeated teams, none of the 4 undefeated teams made it to the championship game.
And we talked about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Exeter, I think they got a little bit better last week with Martinez returning. He had missed a few games with his injury. But Zandier, obviously fantastic talent. It's just hard to line up, one-on-one, man for man against a stacked team like Bishop McDevitt. For Berks pride, I hope Exeter is able to do it, but I definitely would have to, on paper, favor Bishop McDevitt in this one. The 4A one's very interesting to me because it's actually the only other high school football game I watched besides any Wilson games was the Week 10 battle between Wyomissing and LS at Wolfram Field. I went to that one and got to see what those teams were all about. And House is fantastic for the Pioneers. Really impressed by him. I have a tough time counting out Wyomissing. If between Exeter and McDevitt and Wyomissing and LS, I'm going to give Wyomissing more of an edge to possibly pull the quote upset. I know Wyomissing wasn't happy with the way they played against LS the first time around. And now that they've seen him once, I know some of the Wyomissing staff. I know how great they are at their job. They're going to have their team ready to go. It's not as stacked Spartans team as we've been used to over the last few years, but they can go toe to toe with anyone. They're one of the hardest working teams in the state. And if Justice Hardy is healthy, he's one of the best players in the state. So while I think LS is, favored, if a Berks team's going to pull off a big upset, I think Wyomissing has as likely a chance as Wilson or Exeter. So the Spartans are definitely one I think to watch out for on Friday night.
Well, I tell you what, Joe, listen, I know that you were kind of tight on time here. We appreciate you
Yeah.
jumping on, getting you on the broadcast here, and hopefully, some of the Berks teams will move on, and those Wilson Bulldogs, we can bring you back.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad to be able to finally make it on the show this year. I think last year you had me on the show when Coach Preet was on as well. So
Oh,
Rick and I are the same guests here at the end of October, early November, as we talk about
That's
playoffs.
funny.
So yeah, it was funny when you told me he'd be on as well. So I got to
wow.
listen
Well,
to the end of that conversation. It was really good.
yeah. All right. Well, listen, Joe, thanks so much. Appreciate it. And I'll see you. I'll be over there Saturday afternoon as well. So we'll say hello, my friend.
All right, I'll see you then. And
All
All
right.
right,
Well,
see
take
ya.
care, man. Just go ahead
Take
and
it
exit
easy.
out. We'll see you
all
later.
right, see
All
ya.
right. Good stuff.
Nobody better than Joe, man. He knows his football, doesn't he, Dave?
He does. And if I'm correct, LS snapped Wyomissing's 36 game home winning streak, if I
Yeah,
remember
absolutely.
correctly. Yeah.
Yeah, and they,
So,
it was a kind of a beatdown a little bit there, and but as he said, being as much on the sidelines for why I'm missing games as I can on Saturdays to hear how that coaching staff, approaches games and what have you is just incredible. So,
it
all right, well
is.
let's go ahead and get back to our scores, and we can finish that up here.
Yeah. Then we'll bring up the brackets and kind of talk
Yeah,
about a little more
absolutely.
about these games.
Right. Key things in there. LS took care of Twin Valley, and obviously that Wilson score. I think the key thing here that we missed is Bedford. Don't tell
Yeah.
Bedford that it was an upset for them to beat Steel High 24-15.
No, I mean, great win for them. Steel High, obviously, at single A has won all those, I think, what, three state titles in the
Three
last
out of
4 years.
3 and 4 years. Yeah.
Yeah. So, move up to double A, kind of like what Southern Columbia did. And, we'll see, how Steel High could do, moving forward. But hey, hats off to Bedford. Great win by them.
Bermudian Springs 34, Trinity 30. That was for the District 3 3A championship. So congratulations to Bermudian Springs as well. Oops, got ahead. Went a little bit too far. District 1 and District 4 results. Um, the big one here, I think, was North Penn beating Central Bucks South 21-19. Dave, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, great win, close game, two good programs. Downington West beating a very good CB West team, and you have that matchup, which we'll be covering this week. North Penn, Downington West.
Yeah, Westchester Ruston. I think they're trying to exercise some demons here. They're playing really good football, that's for sure. Probably, and everybody was talking about maybe the biggest upset of last week was Juniata beating Shamokin.
Well, you're not going to win too many games when you turn the ball over 6 times.
Yeah,
Giuliana did a great job. Their quarterback, Wyatt Zeller, I think that's how you say it. I think he was over 260 yards, 4 touchdowns in that game. But again, the story was 6 turnovers, 4 fumbles, really doomed Shamokin in that game.
State College waxed is the only way I can describe a
Yeah.
75-14 win. They're looking really strong. Our buddy Matt Linthal, I mean, has really got those guys playing well. Some District 11, District 2 scores. Emmaus goes down to Parkland.
Wow.
Northwest Lehigh, really very easy with Conwell Egan. Um, you can see the Roman Catholic score, and Williams Valley takes out Schuylkill Haven that was a really, really good game.
Yeah, I mean Williams Valley, their quarterback Brady Shumper over 120 yards rushing in that game. I think he threw for about 80 yards. He becomes the first Williams Valley quarterback and only quarterback to throw for over 2,000 yards and rush for
Wow,
1,000 in a single season.
that's
So
incredible.
that's incredible numbers, and they they have a really good team, and they move on and after beating a very good, high-powered running attack like Schuylkill Haven, they really shut them down.
What a shootout between Muncie and Lackawanna Trail.
Oh, I mean, you talk about great games. This might have been the best game over the weekend. Muncie rushed for a team over 400 yards. They were led by Austin Johnson once again, almost 300 yards rushing, three touchdowns in that game. And he was the big difference, but his touchdown at the end with I think like a minute and a half to go in the game. He didn't get any rest because the kids went to the sidelines and told the coach we're going for two. They went for two. Johnson barreled in, got the 2-point conversion and the win. So hats off to Muncie. They move on. Two really good small school programs, Muncie and Lackawanna Trail.
And Scranton Prep. I mean, the team that nobody's talking about right now that's really having an outstanding season and that. So, all right. Well, listen, we've gone through the scores here. Let's go ahead and take a look at the brackets, Dave. What do you think?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. So we're going to figure out where I can pull up these brackets and
Well, they're right on the main page, so you could click on
yeah,
start with
I've
Class
actually
A.
yeah, I've already got them pulled up here, and I can't seem to get out of my uh here. We'll just get rid of that, and here we
Hmm.
go. All right. So statewide brackets.
There
Let's
you go.
start here with 1A. We were just talking about Muncie and what have you. Um, DeLone Catholic up next for Muncie there. DeLone Catholic, the District 3 champion.
Yeah, I mean, this is their ninth District 3 championship that they have, and it's amazing that they going into that game has never won a state
Yeah.
playoff game. Well, again, another team gets their first win because they get it with, I think it was 18 seconds to go. They get the go ahead touchdown throw by Zach Staub. He found Braden Smith for 11-yard touchdown with 18 seconds to go, and DeLone Catholic stunned a very good Belmont charter team 28-22 down in Philly last weekend.
Yeah. Yeah, good for them. Good for them. Probably, I think maybe the most interesting matchup in the state this week, Westinghouse and Bishop Guilfoyle.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Bishop Guilfoyle has won state titles. I think, if Westinghouse is the team that comes out of the East, even though they're a Pittsburgh school, um, could this be the year that Westinghouse finally gets over the hump and gets the state title? They're putting up some nice numbers this year, and that's going to be a fun game to watch.
Yeah, that talk about a clash of styles. Um,
Yeah.
let's talk about the clash of the Titans, which is Ford Cherry and Clareton. I know that myself and my buddy Ian talked at length about this game on our
Hmm.
the WPIAL Blitz show. My gosh, these teams. It's a shame that only one's going to come out because both have had pretty incredible seasons.
Yeah, I mean, what did Ian say? Obviously, two very good programs. For me, as an outsider, from, outside of District 7, I would kind of give Fort Cherry a slight edge, but that's gonna be one heck of a, I think it might be like a Muncie Lackawanna Trail game. It could be a shootout.
Yeah, absolutely. And Wilmington,
Yeah.
they're back with a vengeance. They're up against an undefeated Port Allegheny team.
Yeah.
That you have to fear those teams that nobody's talking about in the tournament. Port Allegheny is one of them, I think. This is just going to be an incredible ride these last couple of weeks in 1A.
Yeah, I mean, again, that bracket, just kind of reading on some of the teams out there, I like Port Allegheny in this one, and we'll see, which District 7, team comes out, but, it's gonna be interesting to see, you know, I mean, 8 really good single A teams that are left.
So let's take a look at 2A now. And we'll start with the District 7 team since they're in the top of the bracket there. Seton LaSalle and South Park. These are two teams that, not the usual suspects when it comes to the Whippeal. And overall in 2A, you know, the behemoth is gone. That
Hmm.
it is totally up for grabs this year. And I think that the overriding factor in the 2A uh, brackets is the fact that it's not the usual suspects, that it's completely wide open. All
It
these
is.
teams feel that they can go out and win this championship, right, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Southern Columbia has dominated single A, has dominated double A since they moved up. And for this year, there's no Southern Columbia. Troy, took care of them 2 weeks ago. And, you look out west, there's three teams unbeaten, along with South Park, who's a very good program at 11-1. It's gonna be, more of the Western teams than I do. But what's your thoughts on, the matchup in District 7 there with Seton LaSalle and South Park?
Yeah, teams that, as I said, not the usual suspects. South Park and Seton LaSalle, really having, spectacular years. They're not, like I said, the traditional powerhouses in
Hmm.
2A from the Whippeal, but both have had outstanding seasons. So some set of fans is going to be extremely happy, coming out of there. And, Central Clarion, what a year they've had, undefeated, really rolled over Farrell. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, they really did.
that they, that says something right there. So keep your eye
Absolutely.
on Central Clarion.
Yeah, I mean a 41-6 win over the number one seed from District 10. That's impressive.
And Williams Valley and Riverside.
Oof.
It's a shame. All of these teams have had such fantastic seasons, and it's the cruel aspect of these playoffs that that it's win or go home, and some of these teams just aren't going to make it past this week. But Williams
Mhm.
Valley really looked good over Schuylkill Haven, and Troy was just a
Oof.
powerhouse last week.
Yeah, Troy, 524 yards rushing as a team. They could just beat you so many different ways. Listen, I'm sure, the Southern Columbia people are like, hey, go get that title. And you know, could District 4 continue dominating 2A in the state? We're gonna find out this weekend and see if Troy can move on.
Yeah, I want to take some time here before we move on to the brackets any further and thank really our sponsors here of the
Yeah,
brackets since we got them up here. St. Luke's Sports Medicine, our buddy Andrew Cohen from Get Recruited Consulting.
absolutely.
Andrew was on the show last week. Really need to if you're a person who's interested or your family, if you're interested in taking your game to the next level when it comes to football, just give Andrew a call. He's going to give you a fair evaluation of where you stand, Mr. PA football, and then coach tools, which is helping coaches really cut down on some of the time that making them much more efficient in evaluating players. Coach tools, definitely check them out, and definitely our sponsors here that have helped us out on the podcast, and then the brackets. We really appreciate their support. So on here
And
to go
and
ahead.
one other thing with Mr. PA football, I think for coaches they could start nominating players now because he's going to start putting the lists together and then fans could start voting for who they feel is Mr. PA football.
Yeah, that just a great organization there. So on to 3A here. Um, Gosh, our buddy Bob Greenberg and that from up in the District 9, District 10 area there, Penn Cambria and Hickory. Um, I tell you what, just Penn Cambria's had a spectacular year. I mean, just kind of whitewashed Somerset last week.
Yeah, I mean, big 40-0 win, and Hickory gets by Sharon, knocking off the number one seed out of District 10 there, 37-31. So that'll be a fun game to watch.
Avonworth plays Central Valley for the WPIAL championship. Central Valley, um, when they've been in 3A, they've won consecutive state championships in 3A. They were up to 4A for 2 years. Now back in 3A, they're playing Avonworth. The 7-5 record really doesn't reflect on this team. It's very very good, but Avonworth, they've just been on a roll for the last 3 years and trying to make some hay to get back to the championship game and maybe win a title.
Yeah, I mean, Avonworth knocks off the 4 seed, knocks off the number one seed. Could they knock off the number two seed? I guess we'll find out this weekend. And in Central Valley, you can't go by their record. I think they had a pretty tough schedule this year, and but I think they were, I think, undefeated or maybe one loss in their division. So they were
Yeah.
like 5-1 or 5-0, something like that. And so you can't go by their record. It should be a good matchup this weekend.
And on the eastern side of the bracket, my gosh, Scranton Prep, Northwest Lehigh, Bermudian Springs, really kind of the underdog of this group. And I don't know how
Yeah.
you call somebody 11-1 an underdog, but they're, I mean, facing off who I think we both have felt was one of the favorites to win a state championship that this year, and that was Danville.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to Bermudian Springs, I mean, this is their first district title since what, 26 years ago, I think
Yeah.
I saw someone posted and hats off to them. And it wasn't an easy game for them, because they did turn the ball over a lot in that game and just had to overcome that, but they did. And they move on and get the win. And as for Danville, I knew this was going to be a good game. Lewisburg's a very good program. Their running back, Jeremiah Davis had a big game with over 260 yards rushing, three touchdown. I think he's over 2,000 yards. So, hats off to Danville. I think Madden Patrick he led the way with the game-winning 69-yard drive. So, and I think that scoring drive was with a minute left in the game. So Danville, our number one team in mid-school rankings, moves on um, and you look at, we talked about this matchup coming up, Northwestern Lehigh
Oh,
versus Scranton Prep.
I mean,
Um, Listen, Northwestern Lehigh, they're on a mission, and that's to get back to Cumberland Valley and finish the job. And listen, I'm just going to put this out here. Northwestern Lehigh boys and girls soccer both finished with state championships, 28 and 0 for
wow,
both teams. This team's undefeated. I think you're talking like it's like 58 and 0 or something like that
that is
between the three
ridiculous.
teams. I don't remember another school in fall sports that could potentially win three state titles and all three programs potentially be undefeated. It's a
What a great story.
incredible. It is. It's a great story, incredible run that Northwestern Lehigh is on right now, not only for football, but what they have accomplished with soccer. And but this matchup is going to come down to two key players, and that's Eli Zimmerman, who I said that kid, he was the player of the year in their league, the kid that he does it special teams, offense, defense. He is such a handful. And then Scranton Prep's quarterback, Lewis Paris, he could beat you throwing, he could beat you running. Those are the two key players. Which team is going to slow one of them down? I guess we're going to find out this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely right. All right, so let's move on to the 4A bracket here. And in my mind, I think the team that is at least favored on the western side of the bracket, maybe Thomas Jefferson. I mean, they are just back to that juggernaut status. They're playing Clearfield this week, who's undefeated, but TJ just incredible. We touched on a little bit on this LS my missing matchup, with Joe a couple of minutes ago. Dave, what are you looking on the western side of the bracket?
Yeah, I mean, out of these eight teams, if I had to pick a favorite to win the state title, you might have to put TJ up top. I mean, what a program. They've been there, they've done it. They have a great coach, great coaching staff. Um, I like TJ to win that game against Clearfield and then, play the winner of LS and why I'm missing. And that is going to be a good one because,
Oh my
we
gosh.
touched on it earlier. LS got him, ended why I'm missing's home win streak earlier in the year. Could why I'm missing return the favor, kind of what Parkland did to Emmaus,
Yeah.
this past weekend. That is going to be a great game. I give LS a slight edge, but I would not doubt if Wyatt Missing comes out with this win.
Nobody's talking about Bottom Friendly on the east side of the bracket. I mean, nobody. Um, and they're up against a real juggernaut with John Paul II, but Bonner beat Roman Catholic this year. So I mean, they've got it in them. Whether they're, and the same thing with Pope John Paul II, though, is they beat much larger schools as well. I mean, in their league, I think their only loss was to Westchester Ruston. Um,
Yeah,
so
I mean, they had two backs, I think before halftime were over 100 yards Johnson and Frank. Mick Johnson's been their star running back all year, and I think he had 160 some yards rushing in that game. Look for those two guys to get the ball and basically control that clock. I mean, they dominated win against West Philly, but this is going to be a challenge against a very good Pope John Paul the second team that, went up north and played a very good Valley View team and shut them out 36 nothing. And their quarterback threw for over 250 yards, four touchdowns. Their top, rusher receiver, Braden Reed, who I think is going to Villanova, had a big game. They're two key players that to keep an eye on in this game. But this one's going to be a good one, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely right, and just an incredible. I, all I can say, and through the four brackets we've seen thus far, what incredible depth of talent across the state. I mean, in every classification this year, more so than I ever recall.
Yeah,
Whoops.
and listen, out of all these brackets, yeah, there's teams you recognize year in, year out, but there's some brackets where you may see some new programs. So it's, you just never know until you suit up and you play the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and for 5A, the game that I'm doing is technically on the western side. Exeter up against Bishop McDevitt. McDevitt is now this is for the District 3 championship, technically state quarterfinal game, but McDevitt is the three-time defending District 3 4A champion who's moved up to 5A this year against Exeter, who's 1 year removed from being the 5A champion in District 3. And that's just going to be a knockdown drag out. And Joel alluded to the fact Exeter got their quarterback, Riley Martinez, back from injury.
Yeah.
They've run the ball extremely well, all year. That's going to be a tough one. Pine Richland and Peters Township.
Oof.
I mean, that's not for the faint of heart.
No, and we talked about this last week. They are two very good programs. Obviously, Richland has won state titles before. I kind of like them in a very close game. But whew, I like McDevitt in the upper bracket, and if it's Pine Richland or Peter Township versus Bishop McDevitt, whew, that's going to be one heck of a West final.
Springfield Delco, Westchester Ruston facing off on one side of the East, and on the other side, Roman Catholic and Hollidaysburg. Look, I like Roman a lot. I think a lot of people have liked Roman all year long, and they kind of just feel that they're fulfilling a destiny. And the same thing with Westchester Ruston. I think that they've had such excellence over time that I think that there's a lot of pressure on Ruston to get to a state championship game. What do you think?
They maybe not, but listen, Rustin's all about the running game. Last week, over 330 yards rushing. Chaz Hayton, had a big game. They had a 97-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. Um, this is going to be a really, I think, a low scoring game. You're going to have two programs running the ball. What's going to come key to me in this game is maybe turnovers, special teams. And if you talk about special teams, well, Springfield Delco, Brian Delaney, he had two touchdowns. his 91-yard kickoff return after Garnet Valley tied it up at 14 was the game winner.
Wow.
So this game might come down to a similar game with Ruston Delco, and it may come down to either a turnover or special teams in this one.
Yeah, it so much of these games come down to special teams, Dave. Uh
Mm,
I say that a lot. And so I guess we've saved the best for last
hmm,
here, and the 6A bracket, which I think really has some star power this year.
hmm.
Um on the west side, Central
Wow.
Catholic is going up against State College. Um, that's just a toss-up game. Uh, just marquee matchups, everywhere in 6A this year. And then Harrisburg up against Wilson, a game that I'll be covering
Mhm.
for us here at Eastern PA Football.
Yeah, and I think Harrisburg's rolling. And listen, Wilson hasn't gotten over that hump against them. Could they do that this year? I guess we'll find out Saturday afternoon, but you have to kind of favor Harrisburg. They're getting healthier and they're getting stronger. And, obviously they're before the season, with everything that happened with their quarterback being ineligible and he left the program, during the summer, everyone was kind of talking, whispering St. Joe's Prep versus Harrisburg. Well, both teams are still playing, and you could possibly see that matchup, uh, for the last game at Cumberland Valley on a Saturday night. So, but first off, Harrisburg's got Wilson ahead of them, and St. Joe's Prep's got Parkland to deal with.
Harrisburg plays such a physical brand of
Mhm.
football now. Joe touched on it a little bit now, that the way that they're running their offense, Nehemiah Ewell, who was kind of their bell cow back, now they've got him at linebacker, and he's just a terror. They line up, Harrisburg lines up a heavy package, and they put their tackle, Kevin Brown, who's a Penn State commit, at
Yeah.
like at fullback, and Messiah Mickens behind him, and they just hand the ball to Mickens, and he just breaks off of whatever block that Brown, can throw for him, and it's like, it's impossible to stop. It's just impossible to stop.
Have they ever, I mean, I know he was out since week 2, but do you feel at some point would they give Kevin the ball?
No, I don't think they'll give
You
Kevin the
don't think
ball.
so?
No,
Okay.
but I tell you what they did last week against Manheim Township is, yeah, he's turned him into a Coach Everett's turned him into a transcendent player. Depending on where they need him, they line him up in the backfield. He'll lead Mickens. If they're going to run the quarterback up the middle, they'll have him at center, and then he can
Hmm.
also line up at tackle as well. I mean, here's a guy who's an offensive tackle that may be the team MVP in
Wow.
this Kevin Brown. I mean, he just was amazing. And then, you can always do misdirection plays if the team kind of overcommits and following him. They ran some misdirection plays off of that. Really opens up their offense. An offensive tackle, incredible. But that's Harrisburg right now, and just watch out. And that it's going to be tough. But yeah, St. Joe Prep and Parkland. I mean, does Parkland have a chance?
You know, Traditionally, District 11 only won one game against District 12, and that I think was against LaSalle on a controversial call. Um, it's going to be tough. I mean, I think ever since Prep lost against LaSalle in that 4 overtime game, they have been on a mission and they are really, I think they're playing their best ball right now, which is really scary. And, you were there this past weekend against MOTAP. Um, got another Harrison there, a freshman. He may be a
Oh my,
freshman, but
yeah,
he's playing like a senior. That kid is making incredible touchdown catches after catches. They're just getting better, and I mean, they got to be the heavy favorite to win
yeah.
6A this year.
And I guess the toss-up game really is the District 1
Oof.
championship between Downingtown West and North Penn, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, North Penn avenged their early loss to CB South. I think it was a 14-6 loss. Their defense forced 4 turnovers in that game in the second half. And, their wide receiver, Matt Panal, I think is his name. He had 6 catches over 130 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns, and 50 yards rushing. So he had a big game, and he's going to need to have another big game against a very good Downington West team. This one I think is a toss-up. But again, in the East, it comes down to, could Parkland beat Prep? No. Can West, um, or North Penn, whoever wins that game, give Prep a game? It's going to be tough, because Prep is just playing at a high level right now, which is really scary.
Yeah, if, a high physical level of
Hmm.
football. I think that definitely the strength of St. Joe Prep's team is in their defense and their offensive line. And, they're young, in theory. I mean, they start a sophomore quarterback. Jet Harrison's a freshman. I mean, they have some seniors peppered in there, but not ones that, are those transcendent type of playmakers that they've had, in the past. So, they're playing a physical brand of football, a
Yeah.
really solid brand of football. And St. Joe Prep, it's gonna be it is really gonna be difficult. I'm really anxious to see who comes out of the western side to match
Yeah.
up against Prep this year. And if there's a team physically that can match up with Prep,
State College?
well, I think it could be Harrisburg. I really do. I
Yeah.
think Harrisburg could be that physical. Harrisburg has got good back end defense, to to blanket some receivers there. They can put pressure on the quarterback, which is what they're going to have to do with that young quarterback. But that's not meaning to say that St. Joe Prep isn't just going to run the football. And so, there's a lot going on, but obviously, State College and Pittsburgh Central Catholic. I think that the collective group in 6A right now is the best Final Eight we've had, in quite some time. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, all those programs are good programs. And, like I said, in the summer, you saw a lot of people whispering a possible Harrisburg St. Joe's Prep matchup. And, we'll see. But were you surprised by that score with MLTEP? I know MLTEP, they graduated their quarterback and some key players from last year's 5A state championship game. But in first ever meeting, St. Joe's Prep Emotep, and it was kind of eye-opening, I think, throughout the state when you saw the reaction of people like, wow, 42 nothing.
Yeah, I think that the key to the game was very early on. I mean, Imhotep blocked a St. Joe Prep kick on St.
Hmm.
Joe Prep's first possession. Imhotep's inability to take advantage of that kick, I think, just set the momentum going in the opposite direction.
Hmm.
I think if somehow Imhotep takes advantage of that and gets into score and kind of gets the mindset, hey, we can hang with these guys. I think it's
Yeah.
a completely different game. But um, Prep dodged the bullet there, and then went down to score, and pretty much it was over, by
Yeah.
halftime.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
anyway,
So go ahead.
I tell you what, just a jam-packed show. I
Yeah.
mean, what didn't we talk about?
Yeah. I mean, next week we'll be talking about a few less games. It's gonna be semifinals before, we'll be 2 weeks out then of going to Cumberland Valley and hey, it's now you win, you move on, you lose, you're done. So teams want to know this week and um it's gonna be exciting. You can't really say there'll be a upset out there, but there could be some surprise wins. You know, who's that going to be this week? We'll find out by Saturday night.
Yes, we will. And we'll be back next Tuesday evening
Yeah,
for our Fresh Set of Down show. Dave, thanks as always. I want to thank Rick Preet,
yeah,
also Joe Mays, and for stopping by. And, we want to thank the fans, especially for hanging with
yeah,
us through the show and all through the season thus far. We really appreciate you, and we appreciate our sponsors, St. Luke Sports Medicine, Get Recruited Consulting, our buddy Andrew Cohen, Coach Tools, and also Mr. PA Football. Right, Dave?
absolutely. And we can't do it without them. So, please go on their sites and take a look. St. Luke's will be there. They'll all their trainers will be out there for every game. So and we'll have some neat things, some interviews and stuff out there when we're out there, and we'll be breaking down each game at halftime.
All right. Well, listen, for my buddy Dave Micah, I'm Bruce Badgley. Listen, thanks for watching Fresh Set of Downs presented by EasternPAFootball.com. Until next Tuesday, hey, drive safely, everyone.